So the third and final phase of the base phase, reinforcing the foundations. Within base phase 3, we should have established our total or like max training load, and we should be starting to incorporate some of the specifics of our event. Obviously, if we are doing an ultra marathon or an Ironman, we need to start incorporating some of like the really long runs, rides, swims, that kind of thing to ensure that we are preparing specifically for our event. So within the base phase 3, we need to reinforce our foundation. So the focus is still around that 80-20, but we can start to increase the total training load via volume. And that's going to be really probably our longest training weeks within base phase 3, and that will ensure that we are as fit as possible with the largest aerobic capacity as possible before we enter into our event specific phases.
What Will just said about the base training 3, his third base training phase, I think that's fallen on some deaf ears. And people are thinking, well, actually, we need to go hard. But don't forget what we talked about with lactate threshold is that we want to get our lactate threshold as high as possible. Because if we get that as high as possible, we can repeat hard efforts over and over more efficiently. So this graph is just kind of showing across the season. And so what this shows with two runners is that as the runner gets more fit and has lactate threshold occur at a higher speed, they're just able to go faster. And this shows us that we really want our lactate threshold to be as high as possible so we can do as much work as possible going easy.
That's right. And when we start to see the very left of the graph, which I guess would be where lactate begins to appear in the blood at a measurable concentration, if we are as aerobically developed as possible, like you just think of the fittest aerobically fit individual. So if you're looking at triathlon, it's Jan Frodeno. If you're looking at mountain biking, it's Nino Schurter in cross country. You look at those individuals, their lactate is not going to start even like featuring on the spectrum until well to the right of the graph, where if you've got someone off the couch, pretty much as soon as they start jogging, lactate shoots up. So just by doing the base phase, we can start to push this graph to the right, where you see the good runner with a shallower curve and a longer curve. And then with what we're about to get into around event specific, we can target that threshold as well to help develop the buffering capacity and tolerance of lactate around that threshold. So that's what we can do there, and that's where we can now move on to the event specific phase.
Dr. Matt and I started the Performance Advantage podcast to help runners, riders, and outdoor competitors integrate sports science more effectively into their training and racing.
So over the last few years, Dr. Will and I have covered topics like the lactate threshold, training zones, power meters, and fatigue. Now we're condensing these popular and misunderstood topics into practical courses.
Our courses take our same podcasting style approach to learning and education, and we break it down into bite-sized chunks that you can digest either all at once or as practical little resources to use as and when you need them.
So the biggest difference between our course and any other course you might have taken is that we don't lecture you. It's a conversation between Will and I, and we're explaining complex sports science principles in an easy to understand manner.
Yeah, we also integrate how we use them on the regular. Our courses come with a certificate of completion, as well as a lot of takeaway resources such as training plans, scientific articles, and quizzes that you can do to check your progress along the way.
Our sports science courses are available now. Register on performanceadvantagepodcast.com for immediate access.